Yeah, 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 yeah.
Don't just make your fucking beats.
I'm about my game. Live by the rules, we don't play the same. That's on my grave, that's on my name. I'm saying, I'm about my paper, about my game. I'm about my game.
What is up, everybody? This is Thomas Christopher from the League Winners, joined by our very own Brandyn Pokrass. This is another episode of College Football Live. It's been a couple weeks. We've had some slight delays in show releases. I do appreciate the people who watched the last show we did while we were down in Daytona. That was very interesting and fun time down there. I do want to give a shout out. Somebody did leave a comment on that video. Said we should get more views. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Might have been hard. I thought it might have been a little hard to hear us, but I guess we did the right thing, right? So obviously we're back again, and this time we have a lot to talk about. National title game rather just went down in the books with the Miami Hurricanes falling short to the Indiana Hoosiers 27-21 with a fourth quarter Carson Beck interception that sealed the game for the Hurricanes. What were your takeaways on that game? I mean, it always felt weird to me that a neutral site game is playing in the stadium of one of the teams in a national title game, but it turned out that it didn't have too much of an effect as Indiana ended up winning. Brandon, what are your thoughts?
You know, I think when it comes to this type of game, you know, it was everything you wanted, right? You know, we could talk about Miami is a neutral site since it's their home stadium, or all the minutia about it. I think at the end of the day, though, really, it's a culmination of one of the coolest sports stories, if not the coolest sports story of my entire life. You know, Curt Cignetti, the former James Madison coach, taking a bunch of James Madison transfers to a football program that historically was not, but was the worst program in all of college football history up until this year. And they are now not only national champions, but undefeated national champions. That is the story, right? A story of a great game between a Indiana team who won every single game of this entire season, passed every single test, and a Miami team that, despite so many conversations about should they be in, should they not be in, Notre Dame, all the fun stuff we've talked about, they proved that, yes, they were one of the best teams in the country. Yes, they were one of the 12 best teams that deserved to be in the college football playoff. And week in, week out, they showed it, whether it was the smooth and powerful running of Mark Fletcher, or the all-around superstardom of Malachi Toney, or the just tenacious pass rush of Ruben Bain Jr. and Akeem Messidor and the rest of that defensive line. They proved that they belonged, and that if they keep building that program, they will be back again. And it was truly a back and forth affair that was very fun to watch. On the other side, you saw a guy like Charlie Becker step up and play at an extremely high level. You saw why Fernando Mendoza is going to be the number one pick in the draft. And, you know, it was a perfect culmination to a season that, albeit despite a lot of discussion and arguments and, you know, some rightful stress and screaming, other not so much, truly a perfect end to what was a very fun college football season.
Yeah, I completely agree. It was a great matchup too. I mean, I tuned in a little bit later and saw it was 10-0 going into the half. And I was like, oh man, this could be a very one-sided affair after this. And Miami fought their way back. I mean, it was a great run by Fernando Mendoza as well on 4th and 5. Ended up steamrolling, keeping his balance and getting in the end zone. And a lot of great plays. Malachi Toney just looking out of this world fantastic on the Miami side of things. You got to really love a kid that's performing at the level he is. I mean, it's impressive. It's very impressive. And then, as you alluded to, obviously Cignetti and his storyline is incredible too. Google him. He wins games. He proved that this year, going undefeated and 16-0 for the first, one of two teams, I think, in a long time to go 16-0. Colorado State notwithstanding, because North Dakota State. I'm gonna blank on that. I apologize in advance, but they went 15-0 if I'm not mistaken, not 16. I might fact check myself later on that one, but still an impressive effort nonetheless. And now they're national champs, and now they're the team that everybody has to take down next. And with that, I think that's a good segue to kind of start talking about a little bit of the transfer portal, where we're seeing so many teams try to gear up for the goal of taking down Indiana and being national title contenders or champions. And one of those teams that was in this game is actually in the center of a very fascinating story surrounding Darian Mensah of Duke in Tulane. And first he was going back to Duke, and now it seems like he might be on his way to Miami. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, first off, I want to ask you, do you think Miami should get in trouble for tampering? Should that be something the NCAA should look at? Two, what are your thoughts on Mensah's situation in and of itself and what happened with him while he was at Duke?
Very complicated and yet fun question. I think this is a perfect encapsulation of what college football is right now, right? Yeah. Because we have the electric, fun atmosphere of this past championship game. And now we're at a point where, we're arguing about the sanctity of contracts in college football, which was supposed to prevent the things that were happening last year in the portal, where guys were just getting scooped up at will. And now you have guys trying to get out of contracts. This isn't the first guy that tried to get out of the contract. Look a little bit out west to Damon Williams and Washington and that entire situation. But, can you fault? You can fault Miami. But before I get ahead of myself, you can fault Miami here, right? You can fault them for tampering with a conference mate to potentially steal their quarterback and leave them in a position where they don't have their quarterback or the ability to get a high-level quarterback in 2026. That's only happening because Miami misses out on Sam Leavitt, who goes to LSU, and LSU's going after that Leavitt because Leavitt didn't end up going to Kentucky. We can do this entire thing in this chain of events, chain reaction that has caused Duke to potentially be holding the bag.
Yeah.
But until you end up with a situation where you can actually enforce contracts and you can actually enforce rules, stuff like this is going to keep happening, right? How many guys have we seen get out of their signings in the transfer portal? It's not just Mensah, right? There's guys that have reportedly signed with teams and then flip to a different school. There's guys that, look at DJ Lagway. It took him forever to sign with Baylor because he was still window shopping. He was still seeing if another school would potentially take him on as quarterback, right? According to the reporting that's out there.
Right.
Have someone from a USF commit that flips to Baylor when it was reported that he was committing one place. And this has happened countless other times. Quarterback position, once again. Kenny Minchie was a Nebraska commit. He then flips to Kentucky, and it sets off this entire chain. So you're dealing with a lot of different things and a lot of different elements in a sport that was not dealing with them just a few years ago. And once again, it all traces back to the fact that the NCAA tried to kick this can down the road. The can exploded, and now they're trying to organize the pieces in a little bit of a semi-coherent manner. And right now, everything's still splattered all over the floor. I truly don't know what happens if the courts don't let Duke keep Mensah. Do we just not look at contracts anymore? Do we not basically give them any credence? Does it become, he's in contract under name, but if he wants to flip to a school, all that school has to do is just have an ungodly amount of money to just buy out the entire thing? Like, we are going down a road in college football, and I'm not surprised by this, and you shouldn't be surprised by this, where there's so many different things that can happen, and the door is just going to keep getting twisted and twisted and twisted. And I don't really have a good solution besides collective bargaining, which I'm probably going to latch onto. Need to obviously read into what that specific solution is for college football, because every sport's different. Every sport needs a specific rule, a specific set of rules that are collectively bargained for, i.e., baseball's rules won't work for football, football's rules won't work for basketball, etc., etc. I just know the next big thing that's coming, and I don't know if you want to pivot there, because we spoke about this earlier before the show, earlier in the day, and it ties into the conversation. Man, the spring's going to be chaos, because you and I both know someone is going to test the non-transfer window in the spring.
Right.
It's going to happen.
I wouldn't blame him at this point. I mean, there's how many times has a guy, and we did talk about this, but for anybody listening or watching, how many times does a guy get, promised or guaranteed one thing going into the portal or going to a school or committing to a school, and then just have the rug pulled out from under them once the portal closes or once commitments are closed? It happens far too frequently. The timing of it is so bizarre too. I mean, they just need a schedule revamp in general, but it stinks because, I mean, we also talked about this too. The reason why they wanted it closed in the first place is because guys were getting taken away during the spring games and spring like after those concluded and the portal opens up. The guys who balled out for their team during the spring, they just went to another school, and that's happened to a bunch of places. I mean, one at a school you covered this year. So it's just fascinating to see how that dynamic's going to occur, because you can almost feel like something is going to force another change, and whether that's multiple portal windows opening up, which I mean, maybe 2 ends up being the sweet spot. Who knows? Moving everything down the line. I mean, what are your thoughts?
There are so many different scenarios that could pop up over the course of things as things go on. Obviously, the portal isn't technically closed in terms of activity right now. Guys just can't enter it. So there's still a bunch of players in the portal looking for landing spots. Guys are still signing. Obviously, you have Miami and Indiana players who now can enter the portal, and that's now a little bit of a window for them. We saw Alberto Mendoza commit to Georgia Tech today. We've seen Emory Williams enter the portal for Miami. Probably expect a few more names of that sort, whether it be some younger depth guys for Miami and Indiana, or maybe a big name or two. Who knows? This college football, nothing surprised me at this point. But there's going to be so many different scenarios that pop up that, to my earlier point, there's going to be a guy that transferred to a school that realizes he has no real shot at playing time over the course of the spring. You want to know what they're going to try to do, or what their agent's going to try to say to them? Hey, this school has an opening. We're going to find a way to get you there. They want you. We're going to find a way to get you there. What authority does the NCAA have to stop that? None. And I'll get to why in a little bit, right? Guys balling out for a school in the spring. All of a sudden, there's a whisper that a bigger school is offering more money to them if they transfer. What authority does that school or anyone have to stop them? Not much, in my eyes. And once again, I'll get to that. We can keep going down the list, right? A quarterback that thought he was in a better spot for the future, doesn't like where he's at, wants to go to a spot where he's in a better situation for the future. Same thing can go for a wideout, a linebacker, a defensive lineman, a cornerback. What if a guy isn't a fan of the coach? I've been in a situation, and you've been in a situation, so many other former athletes understand this, where you get to where you're recruited, you get to a program, and that coach isn't who you thought they were. And you're not a fan of that coach. And now this is not the place you want to be for 4 years, and you don't want to wait until you exhaust a year of eligibility.
Right.
So the point I'm trying to get at with this, and why I'm saying the NCAA has no authority here, ties back to the collective bargaining point. These are still student athletes. The NCAA has made an explicit mention and has continued to emphasize the point that these are student athletes. Yep. So what does that mean? You are still enrolled at a university. You are a student. Do you know what any ordinary student can do? No matter what, they can transfer. They can leave one school and enroll at another. And because athletics is not collectively bargained and has a set of rules, and they still are binded by the NCAA and whatever college you're a part of, those rules, these kids can still transfer. Look at Xavier Lucas this past season. Didn't hit the transfer portal, but all of a sudden he enrolls at Miami and is on the football team.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised if you see a lot more of those types of scenarios where, hey, X player isn't on this roster anymore, and he now is shown up on this roster because guess what? He left the school he was at and enrolled at this school. It's not entering the transfer portal. You are switching schools as a student because you are still considered a student athlete, and that is a major factor that this sport, the transfer portal part of it specifically, does not account for. It is a gigantic gaping loophole that is waiting to be exploited by schools. And because they got rid of the spring window, which, hey, we can make the argument that was the right decision, it is going to get exploited to a nth degree this spring. And I am excited, morbidly, not in a good way, to see who's the first to try to kick down that door. Because if the first player gets away with it, the second, third, fourth, fifth, and so on and so forth are going to get away with it. And then you're just going to have a spring transfer portal and everything but name. That's the next big thing, Thomas. It truly is. Because what is the NCAA, as currently constituted, going to say after their entire argument for years on end has been that these are student athletes? What is their argument going to be? Oh, they can't do that because X, Y, and Z? No, they're a student. They can leave a school if they want. Yeah, they can leave one football program and go to another. Oh, remember this thing called a walk-on? Wow, I didn't realize that was that's still a thing. That is still 100% a thing. That part may get abused too. So there's a few different little things that tie into this student athlete paradigm, the student athlete thing as currently constituted, that is basically in my eyes a gigantic, and I think other people have spoke about this too. I've seen this on the internet. I if I find the post, I want to shout them out, but they're 100% right. And it's not an original idea. It's something I came across, and the more you think about it, the more it's like, wow, this is going to be a major problem in the spring for schools and programs. And there is literally nothing anyone can do to prevent it, because the minute you take that to court, they're going to laugh you out of the courtroom.
Yeah, and we're seeing schools kind of try to, right? Like, I mean, we're seeing Duke try to sue Darian Mensa. We're seeing schools try to add certain contract language, either surrounded by whatever their NIL deals may currently be, if they're tied to the program, and things of that nature, to try to scratch their way and getting back even at a player that could end up leaving down the road. It's getting to the point. I mean, there was always that, college football is like the Wild West right now. It's like past that at this point. It is beyond that at this point. Nobody knows what's happening. We still have NIL agents who have 0 degrees in anything or any relation to football and just diving right in. We have, NIL and college football agents in and of themselves. How many times have we seen a family member be a quote unquote agent for a player and they're just looking for a quick buck? How many times have we seen other companies and businesses take advantage of these kids to try to make a quick buck. And it's happening more and more now, because now everybody wants to take about 20% of what a contract is being signed. And the players aren't necessarily benefiting from that, because I mean, short term, sure, why not? But when push comes up and we talk about these situations, things can be a lot different.
I want to read the account and the tweet that really kind of set this idea in motion for me, and I think a lot of others too. From at a David Hale joint. You guys think all the portal stuff is wild now? Wait till guys find out they're not where they expected on the post-spring depth chart, and other teams have injuries, and that whole, quote, one portal window notion is going to blow up. Follow-up tweet, it's all a simple problem. Without enforcement, it's a free-for-all. Can't enforce rules that'll be challenged in court and lose. We'll keep losing in court without antitrust exception or collective bargaining. Feds aren't eager to do one. Schools aren't eager to do the other. It is truly a bomb waiting to go off. Like, if you really think about it,
yeah,
it's truly a bomb waiting to go off, in the sense of there's no enforcement for that. The student athlete part that the NCAA, once again, has been so adamant on enforcing, is going to be the part that causes this thing to get out of control, which is ironic and honestly what the NCAA deserves, because they created this entire mess in the first place by never preparing anything.
Yes. It's going to just be their just desserts of just allowing this storm to continuously brew to a point where everyone's like, hey, maybe you should step in here and do something. And they're just like, nah, I'm good. And they're just, flipping the money bands back, and because that's all, at the end of the day, that's all most of these people really care about. But I did want to move off the insaneness of the portal, I guess, and talk a little bit about just the overall, how it's transpired. Your LSU Tigers ended up number 1 in the transfer ranking score. Ole Miss is second right now. Texas third, Ohio State fourth, and Penn State fifth right now. I'm interested. Actually, let's go. I'll go top 10 after Penn State. So it is LSU, Ole Miss, Texas, Ohio State, Penn State. Then rounding out the top 10 is Oklahoma State. Eric Morris putting in work there. Indiana, the aforementioned Cignetti. Texas Tech, Kentucky is at 9, and Notre Dame is at 10. Are there any surprises in that top 10 for you? Also, how do you feel about LSU being first there, considering you are a Tigers guy?
It's not surprising, considering the resources that Kiffin has brought in, and the his commitment that he has brought to the forefront for that program. And going through 247 at the top, Ole Miss has done a really good job of bringing in top tier guys. Texas has probably been maybe not the biggest portal class, but definitely one of my favorites. Verleek Brown, amazing pickup. Hollywood Smothers stealing him from Alabama. That's one of those flips we're talking about. Amazing pickup. And then Cam Coleman. That Texas offense is going to score, and they are going to score a lot. I really hope they don't have the slow start they did this past season, because this is the type of team you want to see in the playoff. You want to see them on the biggest stage, especially with a lot of guys that are going to probably get a lot of preseason draft buzz, whether that be Arch Manning, someone that I've been high on, didn't overreact to, still high on. Cam Coleman, I think, is going to be phenomenal, and obviously the running backs and even some of the other less heralded, if you want to say, players at the skill positions for Texas. Ohio State, if you look through their class, not the most quote-unquote hyped class, but they've made some really nice pickups. I think one that really stands out for me is Kyle Parker from LSU. I think that's a player that, with more consistent quarterback production, LSU had their issues with, and that also ties in their offensive line play, but Nussmeier and Van Buren didn't have a chance to really attack downfield as much as the Tigers wanted to. I think that with Jeremiah Smith in that offense and some of the other big weapons, Parker has a shot to do some very fun things as that kind of slot speed guy. I think another one to really highlight is Earl Little Jr. from Florida State. They're losing one of the best players I've seen in college football in a long time, and Caleb Downs. They're replacing him with not just Earl Little, but also Terry Moore. So that's a really good haul at the safety position for the Buckeyes. Mason Williams, another gritty MAC tight end. Justin Martin as a backup quarterback. One of my other favorite pickups for them, they kind of go together. James Smith and Kua Russaw from Alabama. I really think that those guys can be instant impact players, very similar to some other transfer guys that the Buckeyes have really brought in over the past few years. And rounding out the top 20, just kind of looking at some programs, I have been hugely excited about what Cal has done. Yeah. I think they are going to be a threat in the ACC next year. JKS in year 2, giving him Ian Strong, who I thought would have been a very high pick in this year's draft and is going to be one of my favorite wideouts in college football heading into next year. Oh, yeah. I think what they have added at the running back position, if I'm correct, I want to pull this up to make sure I am not spreading disinformation. Making sure.
Yeah, always double check.
Adam Muhammad from Washington, I think that's a phenomenal pickup for a team that was utterly rated at the running back position the previous season. They did a very good job of weathering the storm, and I think Muhammad is a fantastic pickup. I think Ashton Emery is another great pickup, as is Carter Vargas, kind of rounding out that room. Once again, I think another really fun pickup for them is Chase Hendricks. So you add Hendricks to Ian Strong. That's how you round out a receiver room, man. That's really great stuff from the Golden Bears. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I think Kingston Lopa is a really, really fun safety prospect. Really just overall defensive back prospect in that secondary. Cal has churned out NFL caliber defensive backs. I think he may be the next one whenever he is draft eligible. And then three other teams I really want to hit on, not really diving in depth as them. Actually, I'm just going to rattle off a few. Screw a number. We're having fun with this. This is the transfer portal. There are no rules, Thomas. Just going off rankings, Eric Morris and Oklahoma State. I mean, that roster got utterly destroyed, bringing 54 transfers. Whew, that is crazy. And that's honestly a phenomenal job by him. I think that the big names are obviously the ones that are coming with him from North Texas. I am about as high on Drew Mestemaker as any quarterback in college football. I think that if he was in this year's draft, we'd be having some very interesting discussions about quarterback 1. He obviously is not draft eligible. Thomas, are you frozen or just talking? I think Thomas is currently frozen right now. No, maybe. I don't know. He's not really saying anything. I'm going to continue because I don't know if his Wi-Fi is working at the moment, or maybe it's mine. Who knows?
Yeah. Oh no. I'm back. Baby.
Okay, I wasn't tripping. That's good. I was about to start.
No, I don't know.
I was about to.
Was I just frozen in time?
Yeah, I was looking and I wasn't sure if you were. No. Sidebar, wasn't sure if you were screwing with me or not. Just staring at me, and I'm like, is he frozen? I'm going to continue. If
I was just intently listening.
Yeah. Pause. Moving on, Texas Tech has obviously done a lot of really great stuff in the portal. I think that the Baron Morton edition could give them an even higher ceiling on offense than they even had this past season, and some of the wideout additions they've had at that for that school. They got the money down there. It's really impressive what they're doing. Auburn, currently ranked as the number 12 portal class, obviously very well known how much they have taken from USF's 2025 roster. You know, some of the newer additions being Cole Best, Cole Skinner, obviously Byron Brown,
right?
You know, Keyshawn Singleton, Jeremiah Coger, Nakai Davenport, Jonathan Eccles, even some of the depth guys like a Gavin Jenkins and Corey Pettigrew. But they have really started to add some fun players from outside of the state of Florida. Jake Johnson from UNC, Jack Lyrer from Stanford, offensive tackle, Corey Sigler, defensive lineman from Arkansas State, Joseph Simmons from James Madison, offensive tackle, Jack Luttrell, a safety from Arizona, Stanton Ramil from Michigan State. Really looking for that size on the offensive line and looking for that versatility in the defensive backfield. I really like what they've done. I'm fascinated to see how it looks on the field. I'm fascinated to see how the group meshes together and what differences, whether on offense or defense, this Auburn team has from USF. Because the biggest thing you want to see, especially from a coach, quote unquote, rising up the ranks to a new spot, is what did they learn from their last spot? What did they learn in terms of how they approached the game, how they called plays in a good way, how they called plays in a bad way, what they need to learn from? That's my biggest question for Auburn. And obviously, we're not going to see that for a while. You know, it's January. The season doesn't start for another 7 months. But that's the question I'm always going to have, because it's very easy to bring in all the talent. It's very easy to land the guys in the transfer portal. What does it actually look like when you hit the field? I'm excited to find out. Last team I want to highlight, Arizona State. I think Arizona State has done a phenomenal job in the transfer portal. They are ranked number 14. Some guys I want to highlight in terms of additions. I think Jalen Thompson from Michigan State is a great pickup for Arizona State. I think Amarian Miller is one of the best additions in the transfer portal, point blank, period. I think that Ashton Stamps is a fun addition in the secondary. Josiah McGrew added from FIU. Keep an eye on him. He was one of my favorite players, period, that I watched this past season on defense, and I think he can get even better playing for the Sun Devils, not in I was going to say Sunshine State. He played in the Sunshine State. He's going to play for Sun Devils. It's easy to get that mixed up. And then from the quarterback position, very interesting pickup, Cutter Boley. I think he can be just as good as Sam Levitt was for that team, especially considering what is around him and what that team should look like in the Big 12 conference. How about you, Thomas? Where are you leaning in terms of some of your standout classes? Because I kind of went on a large monologue and then your internet cut out, and then I continued my monologue.
No, you're good. You hit the nail on the head for me for Arizona State. That was a team that I really wanted to pinpoint. Another one, I mean, obviously number 2 is Ole Miss after losing Lane Kiffin. I mean, Ryan Golding, this guy has no shame, man. He has zero shame in what he's doing right now. And I mean, it's working. Like he's grabbing some excellent players on the team. I mean, Karius Curran, offensive tackle. He's a great offensive tackle. They have Darryl Gill from Syracuse who's going there. I mean, it's just fascinating. Luke Farrelly, I guess. I mean, we talked about very interesting transfer portal situations. How about Luke Farrelly, who was enrolled at Clemson, and he's projected to leave and go to Ole Miss? That's insane.
Is that still the case?
As of 8 hours ago, the most recent news story on it is potentially yes. They're expecting life without Luke Farrelly, who was a standout a true freshman at Cal last year. Great linebacker. He's also gone in and out a lot of places. I believe he was at USC was also bidding for him as well. Before he went to Cal, he committed and decommitted a couple times as well. I believe Stanford was one of the teams. So he's a guy that, but by the way, I love Luke, and his brother is fantastic too. His brother plays in the FCS, also a linebacker. Really great family. Shout out to the Farrellys. It's just very fascinating. And I mean, if I'm Luke, I don't blame him for doing what he's doing right now. Get your money, man. Who the hell knows how everything else is going to play out in this crazy world of college football that we have here. One team I'm surprised about, I mean, they're in the top 25, but they're further back. I mean, is Deion Sanders. He's been getting Deion Sanders is Colorado Buffaloes. They got 3 4-stars. They got 39. They've lost a lot of guys though, and I think that's surprising to me given the message that Dion, Coach Prime usually is giving out. It's very fascinating to me to see how that goes. And obviously I want to talk about the Syracuse Orange as well, where it's kind of a similar thing where Fran Brown was another guy who was, lauded for his great recruiting efforts, same way as Coach Prime. Good first year when they had all the pieces together. Second year, both teams kind of fell off a cliff. And obviously we've seen the turnover with Syracuse and getting rid of a lot of guys. Coach Campanelli, who's now offensive coordinator at UConn. There's a lot of there's a lot of movement that happened. Syracuse lost a lot. They lost everybody. They lost Steve Angeli to his torn Achilles, right? They lose Justin Willis to the portal. They use Jonte Cook to the portal. They lose Daryl Gill to the portal. They lose. You name the guy. They lost Dan Villari to the NFL draft. They're losing Deuce Chestnut to the NFL draft. The only real guy that they have right now is, Demetrius Samuel. Shout out to him. He's done fantastic. And, on offense, maybe it's Darius Boobie Johnson, wide receiver. Now, they brought in a lot of talent through the recruiting class. But we're seeing, too, we've talked about this off here, the quarterbacks that they brought in the room. Potentially Steve Angeli, he might get cleared, but is he going to be good to go? Is he going to look good? I personally have my doubts, at least for the first couple weeks. But those are teams that and actually I'd have to check where Syracuse is even ranked in the portal. They're outside the top 50. So that's not great. You never want to be that if you are in the Power Four, and they're at 56 behind Michigan State ahead of Boston College, with 18 commits to the portal. Not terrible since he does have a pretty big 26 recruiting class, but you just expected more veterans to come in and help with future production. I am a fan of Coach Fran Brown, but it's something that I'm a little bit concerned with. It's just very interesting to see. A lot of stuff is going to happen this year. We'll see how it goes.
Before we move on from Syracuse, I want to ask you this. I think one of the most interesting things that the Orange have done in the portal is not one of the most interesting things they've done. One of the more interesting things to talk about is about the quarterbacks they brought in, because they brought in Malachi Nelson. Yes. Very, very big name. Production hasn't followed as much. They brought in Danny Lauder, who I think attended Georgetown. They brought in Amari Odom. Yeah. And I think it's that trio. Very, very fascinating group of players. I am a huge fan of Amari Odom. Malachi Nelson has all the talent in the world, just hasn't put it together just yet. Then you're getting more of that veteran, most likely backup type in the Georgetown kid. Where do you fall with this? Because I think it's a very interesting room, especially considering Angeli is on the climb back from one of the toughest injuries come back from. You're also going to have this quarterback room throwing to a guy like Matt Alton from Penn State, a guy like Cole Weaver, who transfers in from Miami, Ohio. Making sure I got that right. Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Also Noah Myers from Western Kentucky. There's going to be some weapons here. How do you feel about this quarterback room and really what this competition could really look like come springtime?
Well, it was seeing everybody in the quarterback room leave except for Angeli was very interesting. So they had to bring in a lot of names, right? I'm fascinated. My biggest thing is because of your father, I have a couple friends. They've torn their Achilles, and they your father used to be a D1 athlete. I know quite a bit of time ago, still D1 guy. A couple guys I know are D1 guys or potential D1 guys. It took more than a year for them to really be the guy again. And that's, different sports as they were basketball, but and I know Angeli's more statue-esque of a guy, but he does have potential to get out of the pocket and do some things, at least maneuver in the pocket. And trying to trust that Achilles after year one that's going to be tough for him. We'll see if he can do it. I'm just fascinated to see who ends up securing the number 2 role, right? Because in the transfer portal, they brought in those 3 guys, and whoever is the number 2 is going to end up potentially being the guy who comes in and ends up having to start the year. It's just that's the most fascinating thing to me when it comes to that is Malachi Nelson, from UTEP, like he was a starting quarterback. He wasn't bad at all. Amari Odom, we've talked about him at length off air. Like he's another guy who can come in and start if he needs to, if they can build a team around him. Now, man, the Angeli thing scares me. I'm really curious to see Amari Odom and what he can do, but I'm not, upset if Malachi Nelson gets some rub as well. I just, with the way Syracuse's schedule is next year too, which is not the easiest either, it might put Fran Brown behind the 8 ball, and I do not hope that for him. I think he's a good guy at the end of the day. It's just going to be very fascinating. I don't know if they'll be able to string it out because I do have some questions about certain stuff on the offense and on the defense too. But that's for a different topic. We'll end up talking about that in a couple weeks or so. But before we get the next guest in here, because he's going to be here in about 5-10 minutes, I do want to talk about what we're actually going to be doing this week, because I think we'll be back before the next time the show airs, when everybody listens to this, we'll already be back from the Shrine Bowl, which is where we're heading.
You'll be back. You'll be in
Mobile.
I'll be in the next place.
Yes.
That I'm going to, which we'll get to.
Yes, he's staying on the road forever.
I didn't want to steer I want to get there. I didn't want to steer the conversation away just yet.
Okay, yeah, let's stay on it then.
How do you feel about some of the classes in the non-autonomy conferences? Because there's been some very fun ones in my eyes, and I obviously that's a large part of what our next guest coming on is going to talk about. I want to kind of set the scene for that conversation. I want you to give some of your thoughts, because I've talked a lot about transfer portal. You're kind of catching up with everything now as things are quieting down.
Yeah, a little bit. I guess we could call it that. I'm impressed, but I think Temple's going to kind of surprise a lot of people, man. I really do. First off, they're number 1 in the American for the transfer portal right now. And that should
I think that is overall recruiting.
Oh, is it recruiting? Oh, wrong page. This is why I double check. Still though, that's all I'm gonna say.
To put it in blunt terms, they've done a phenomenal job recruiting. Regardless, they're top 5 in the American. My bad, top 4 in the American in terms of their transfer portal haul. They had a really impressive 2026 recruiting class. That isn't even done yet. The actual signing, the real, I'm saying real because most kids are doing early. The final national signing day is in February. They can still add to that class. They've done a really impressive job of adding talent. And Casey Keeler, you know how much of a fan I am of him. I think what his offense is phenomenal. I think that defense is going to take another step. They're probably my dark horse in the American this year. And I'm saying that on January 20th before we've seen a spring practice or anything like that. But I'm in. I'm in on that team. I really am.
Yeah, I apologize for the misspeak, but yeah, I do love what Temple's doing. James Madison, I think, is going to be very interesting with Billy Napier. He's kind of, he's brought the band back in terms of like a lot of the coaching staff, but that's somebody that I'm very curious. He's not going after like heavily starred players too. He's not chasing stars, chasing guys highly ranked. Like he has a lot of 0-star guys on there. So I think that's going to be very fascinating to see. Obviously FAU, that we'll talk about once our next guest comes on. One team that I'm actually like very surprised about is Delaware, because I don't think I think they have less than 5 transfer guys coming in. I'd have to double check that, but they've done a great job like retaining everybody that they've needed to retain so far. And that's, I mean, Nick Minicucci, he's come in after Zach Marker got hurt, and he ended up putting on a show in the CUSA and first year under Coach Ryan Carty as the starter. Coach Ryan Carty he's been putting together some great offenses. A very pass heavy guy, which could sometimes be the detriment to him, but he brings a very fun offense. But I'm just kind of surprised that let me double check that real quick. They've brought in 7. Okay, so they have 7 commits right now. 7 commits and 2 3-stars. So they've gotten more since the last time I saw them. So that's good, but 7 transfers in a very competitive CUSA. That one surprised me. That one actually surprised me quite a bit there. FIU ends up, I mean, they've done a pretty good job. Willie Simmons just continues to keep building stuff there. I'm a little surprised Kennesaw State hasn't done more considering the guys that they've been losing. That's a little bit of a surprise to me. And then in the Sun Belt, Georgia Southern too. I know I went back and forth a little bit, but after they lost JC French, I thought that they were going to make a bigger splash at quarterback. They didn't do that. They also lost Camden Brown, obviously, to the NFL draft as he was at the Hula Bowl. Looked fantastic there, by the way, for anybody curious. We have a video on him. You can just check it on the League Winners. He looked fantastic, and but I just thought they were going to do more in the portal. I know they have a decent recruiting class, but I guess that's kind of my main takeaways from the non-autonomy transfers.
And this will tie into our friend that's waiting in the back room. But I want to highlight the American Conference as a whole. As you know, going off website rankings is sometimes a bit tough, but according to 247 Sports, USF has the highest rated non-P4 transfer class. They're currently above schools like Washington, Michigan State, Syracuse, and Boston College.
Yeah.
And then if you look at the conference as a whole, you know, you have USF with 39 commits, Memphis with 35 commits, North Texas with 44 commits, Temple with 23 commits, UAB with 32 commits, and FAU with 31. Add in even in East Carolina and Tulsa if you really want to keep working down. I've been really impressed with how the overall conference has attacked things. You know, if you want to go team by team, class by class, these have been schools that have added not just guys that have been at the P4 level looking for playing time, but guys that are on the rise and are looking for an opportunity to move up a rank and really show that they can produce at high levels, but after producing at either the FCS level or the D2 level. And a school that has done a ton of that in this class has been FAU. And who better to talk about FAU than Mr. Robbie LaSalle himself. So Thomas, bring him in.
Yeah, let's get. What's up, Robbie? How you doing, brother?
Good, guys. How's it going? It's been a while. Season's come and gone, but we're still going. So doing good.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, Robbie. So obviously we've been talking the transfer portal. But first, I just want to get your quick thoughts on how the national title game went between Miami and Indiana. Just what were your thoughts on that game in general?
I thought it was a great game. That's really all I was wanting. I think everyone has been running with the narrative after that game of, anyone can win now. I don't like doing the whole big picture thing. I like focusing on these two teams. I think it's a really, really cool story, right? Miami was not even supposed to be in there, if you ask some people. In Indiana, obviously, everyone knows they were struggling with Akron a couple of years ago. So to see both them get back to where they are is cool. It'll be interesting to see, right, if both of them can get right back and do it again next year. Indiana will have potentially Josh Hoover in there, and I'll be interested to see if Miami gets Mensa. But Miami, to me, is a little bit more of a role. They lose Bain, they lose Mesidor, a couple other key contributors as well, but they get Tony and Fletcher back. So they can get a good quarterback in there. Anything's possible. But the game itself, great game. Tough roll there at the end on that interception. But what are you going to do? The back and forth battle, credit to Miami for sticking in there. But I don't think anyone was going to beat my Indiana this year.
No, I don't think so either. They just team of destiny, I guess we'll call that. Then we'll get right back to the transfer portal now, because I mean, obviously, a lot has happened with the Florida Atlantic Owls. They were able to maintain one guy who entered it and lost another key contributor, but there's a lot more than that. Could you just go through some of the key guys that they've lost and some key guys that they brought in that you're potentially excited about?
Yeah, so obviously you look at the two wide receivers; those are the big ones that jump out to you. In Jay Sean Platt and Assad Wasim, but they do keep Easton Messer. I'll start with the wide receiver room. You look at those three, right? Those are your three big contributors from last year: Jay Sean off to Illinois and Assad off to Purdue. And so you lose two guys that obviously showed enough potential to go to the Big Ten. Assad played in the slot a lot with Easton. To re-sign two slot guys that are very talented in the American Conference is almost greedy. If you're a school like FAU where your money is not unlimited, right? You got to find a way to make that spread that money around, and so they probably, I'm sure Assad wanted to come back. He mentioned, the premise of next year before, but probably business decisions were made on both sides. And Platt has been here. He's graduated by now, and he had his career year. And, you got to shine eventually if you believe you can. And so that was his time too. But, they kept Easton Messer, which I think is the big one. There's definitely schools coming after him, and they kept him. And so they keep him. They keep Caden Veltkamp. Obviously, for those who followed FAU, those two are the big duo. And then so getting those two back is big. Then behind them, you get two of your depth receivers back in Dom Henry and Brandyn Hoke. And then, you bring in a couple wide receivers through the transfer portal. They weren't overly aggressive, but I think they targeted well. Just going down the list, you get Jamari Powell-Watson from Maryland, RJ Garcia, who from Bowling Green, he was on Kansas State a couple of years ago, and was a key, not a key contributor, but made some contributions there. So he'll be able to, and he was obviously more of a contributor at Bowling Green. So I think he'll be able to come in and potentially kind of maybe key in for a third, fourth, fifth wide receiver type role. And then you get into some of the other guys who don't have as much experience, but still a little bit. Tucker Holloway from Virginia Tech, Kelby Volson from Texas Tech, both two wide receivers. Not a ton of experience at P5 level, but they'll come, or P4, and they'll give it a go and see where they can kind of slot in. And in terms of the running back room, that to me on the offense is still a little bit of a question mark. Jamari Sands obviously was a late entry and just went to FSU. Caden Shields-Dutton does return, but it looks to me right now they're in a little bit of a similar situation to where they were last year. Xavier Terrell's off to Northern Iowa, which I don't know, maybe he's going to be the next David Johnson. That one surprised me. I thought he was probably at least could have stayed at FBS, but who knows? I mean, maybe he thought he'll get a lot of touches there. But back to the FAU room, there's still a question of depth there. A couple guys come in from the D2 level. You bring in, you bring back Caden Shields-Dutton, but I still want to see them maybe go out and potentially bring in at least a guy who was a depth piece at a G5 school. It doesn't have to be a super contributor, but somebody that you're comfortable with kind of slotting in there, because they don't have a ton of pieces right now in the running back room. So on the last piece on the offensive side of the ball, the big key, obviously, Vinny Fia-Cable was set to go to the transfer portal. He comes back. So you pair him up with Jacavian Nonar on the outside. He's a returner. Didn't have the best year at left tackle at times, but, retention, you hope to build on struggles that you had. And so instead of bringing somebody in from scratch, they're going to try to build a little bit there. And you got Braden Cunningham in the wings as well. So there was another piece too that they brought into the transfer portal. I'm blanking on his name, but I'm pulling up my list right now. Where is it?
Hayden Jones.
Ben Galloway from Georgia Tech. He's definitely got a chance to be a contributor on the line. And that to me is there was some rumors he was potentially getting recruited by Florida. So, I think overall they've done a good job on the offensive side of the ball. Defense, they lost Tyler Stolsky at linebacker. Zion Perret at corner was a contributor. But they did a good job at keeping some pieces too. You look, they kept CJ Doggett, they kept Leon Hart, they kept Wilkie Denoud, who I think he had the most sacks on the team. So they kept a lot of pieces. And then they go bring Joe Sip from Kansas. He was potentially trying to come in year one, ended up going to Kansas, got hurt. Was a big contributor at Bowling Green, I believe, too, before Kansas. And so that's a guy who can come in and contribute, take Stolsky's role and kind of excel. So they've been aggressive in the transfer portal. It was like bang, 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 like in a span of a couple days. They filled out like their entire roster. Special teams as well. They went and got a kicker from SMU, Colin Rogers, a punter from Georgia Southern. So, yeah, I think they've done a really good job. They didn't get rated, and they really kind of attacked where they were kind of lacking. So I'm excited to see how some of these pieces fit. Obviously, don't know really how it'll work until we get to week 1 of next year, but they've definitely done their due diligence. Like a lot of teams in the American Conference, I think, even a team like UAB has intrigued me on paper. So I'm excited. This next year, I think, will be really fun in the league.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to ask you, because they had a lot of guys in the trenches too, but in comparison to like the rest of the American, like where did you see them? Not just with this portal class, because I think they're literally dead middle of the pack in the portal ranking. But where do you see this team going into the 2026 season?
Yeah, I think this is a year where they've at least got to contend for. Obviously a bowl game, but you bring back a player like Caden Veltkamp, we go back to the national championship game. The conversation is about the veteran quarterbacks, Mendoza, Carson Beck, and look at how both those schools are going about replacing them. Josh Hoover and potentially Darian Mensah. Bringing back a veteran quarterback in today's college landscape is. Well, I don't know how they did that. I mean, that shows me that relationships still matter because the SFAU still has NIL, and I'm sure Caden is getting a lump sum of that. But I mean, you can nitpick his interceptions, whatever you want, but there's definitely a power conference school that will take his experience and abilities too. I mean, it's interceptions aside, he's talented, and there's definitely suitors out there. So to bring him back is massive, and I think you have to capitalize that. If you can't capitalize on a 2-year returner with your coach, 3 years will be a 3-year starter overall, then you get a little concerned because what else do you need if you can't capitalize on that in the American? So I think this has to be a year where FAU is, I'm not saying they have to win the whole league. Obviously that's the goal. But I think they need to be contending towards the top 3-4 teams in the league this year. They have returned a lot of pieces. Caden aside, Easton's back, Caden Shields Dutton. Vinny went in the portal and came back. On the defensive side of the ball, Doggett was your best interior defensive lineman. Denard off the edge. Leon was your best linebacker. You're keeping some of your corners as well. McGee, Rogers. You lost a couple defensive backs, but I think they're going to be all right back there. If they can get everyone aligned in the secondary, make a boost on the defensive side of the ball in year 2, I see it being a productive year. Now, anything can happen, but I think the absolute worst floor for FAU is 6 wins. It has to be.
Yeah. B, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really intrigued to see, especially once we hit the spring and kind of start getting, the chance to talk and really get that first impression. I really want to see how quick some of the high impact FCS D2 guys hit the ground running. A guy that really stands out to me is Kenyon Garner off the edge. And that's a guy that was getting pursued by Texas Tech, right? This is a guy that was heavily sought after in the early iteration of the transfer portal. that is the type of guy, if he can translate even 3/4 of what he did at that level up, that's how you go from, if you're FAU, a defense that struggled in the back half of the game to, oh, we have a guy that can close things out. Oh, our offense that is running teams out of the building. You want to how the opposing team doesn't score? You have a pass rusher that can get after. So that's a guy that I have circled where I'm like, okay, if he hits, things could be really, really rolling for this FAU defense. Another guy that falls into that category for me is Nate Fisher. San Diego product, one of the better linebackers at that level of football. You know, putting him next to a guy like Leon Hart, if Fisher is allowed to fly around and he flies around and makes plays like he did at San Diego, well, now you don't only have the pass rusher, now have the linebacker that can fit in the run game. So many problems for FAU's defense stem from missed tackles and stem from bad run fits and, you know, that slow reaction. If you have the guy that can fly downhill, all right, now you're cooking with something on that side of the ball. And the same goes for the running back position, that Robbie mentioned. Leonard Farrow, huge addition that really produced at a high level at his level of football. How does he pan out? And some of the other running backs that they added, such as Brady Tillman. If those guys alongside Caden Shields doesn't hit, now you're working with an offense that can be multiple. Now you don't have defenses just selling out to dare Caden Velkamp to beat them over the top. Now you actually have to respect the run, and everything starts flowing off that. So we talked about it in previous iterations of the show. FAU's strategy combined targeting P4 guys that didn't have the playing time to bring in, which we saw that to be the case a lot in this transfer portal. And also they targeted D2 guys or FCS guys that had produced at a high level to bring that floor. If that floor comes to fruition at the FBS level in the American Conference, like it has for a lot of teams, this has been something that a lot of teams have started to adopt, I think you're going to see very good things from FAU this year.
Yeah, Robbie, before we get you out of here, I just wanted to ask you too, like, what are your thoughts on Zach Kidley going into year 2? Because I know year 1, no offensive coordinator, no quarterback coach. He was doing all 3. Do you think he should be doing that again this year? How do you think his approach should change, if any?
Yeah, well, you know, they didn't bring in anybody. So there was no, you know, I potentially wanted them to bring in, you know, maybe a veteran analyst. They still can. I mean, that's not something that's, you know, an analyst type deal. They can do whenever. But as it looks right now, it looks like it's going to be pretty much the same staff for the most part. And so, you know, that they're doubling down. And I think that's what you have to do. If you're confident in your abilities, go with it. But I think you need to see everything be a little bit more smoother. At times there was some offensive discombobulation. But I think by the end of the year, I thought it was a lot better. I think we saw it grow. I think we saw the defense, you know, fluctuate at times. Some games I really thought they were growing, and in others I was like, well, you know, this is ugly. So, you know, this year it has to be a continued year of growth, but it also has to be kind of come out of the gates ready to go. You know, there can't be, you know, as much as, you know, they have to find a way to really make that FIU rivalry, you know, because I know last year Kitley tried to, you know, downplay a little bit, and got to get up for that one now. There's no, you got to come out of the gates ready to go. You got to beat FIU in year 2. You got to get that trophy back. You got work to do to kind of build that fan base up a little bit. You know, you lost them there at the end with the unfortunate ending to UConn, and then that brutal loss to ECU to end it out. So they got a little bit of a bad taste in their mouth, and they can come out in the gates and make some noise early. I think that's important. You know, you want them to get to 6 wins, but you don't want them to have to limp to 6 wins. We want a pretty season in some way here in year 2. Show some progress because this is a foundation, whether you want to look at it that way or not. You got your starting quarterback back, running back, wide receiver, center, and I already went down this path, but to have them back, you gotta capitalize on it. If you can't, there's questions to be raised, rightfully so. So every year is a big year, but this is an important stepping stone year for him and the program. Got to get back to a bowl game. It's been a while.
Yeah, that's an understatement. But Robbie, thank you so much for coming on, brother. Before we get you out of here, let everyone know where they can find you out on your social media.
Yeah, you can give me a follow. Arla Stella Report. We're still pumping out content. FAU Owls Nest. Basketball season. Owls making a push, hopefully, to try to get back to the NCAA tournament. So stay tuned. We'll see.
That'd be sick. Robbie, thank you so much for coming on, brother. I appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, guys.
That is Robbie LaStella. You guys, make sure you follow him. Great follow for Florida Atlantic football. He also does a lot of college college basketball as well. You can find him at the letter R, LaStella, LASTELLA, report on X/Twitter. So there was a little surprise. I mentioned to Mackenzie that we were going to be talking some bowl game stuff, some potential USF stuff. She is unable to come down. She ended up having a power situation at her house. Praying for the best, hoping for the best there. She is going to be our correspondent at the American Bowl. Great event, sponsored by the NFL Network. First year for those guys practicing at UCF facilities not as we speak now, but maybe I should listen to this tomorrow.
Good Lord.
that'd be interesting. Team
not
meetings, I'm sure, are going on. Those are definitely going on. But a little segue into that, since we have to kind of skip that a little bit, unless you wanted to go over a couple key players you wanted to look at. I know Mac Harris is not there? ? I'm Ron Burgundy.
Let's move to the one we're going to.
Yeah, that's probably a better idea.
Yeah,
because we were a lot more prepared for that one. And that, of course, is the Shrine Bowl. It's going to be at the Star this time. No more double bookings by our great friend Jerry Jones.
Jara.
Yeah, it is going to be at the Star. Practice is held at the Star, and the game is fantastic. It's for Shriners children. I can't say enough good things about the job that Eric Galco and company have done with the East-West Shrine Bowl this year, and they've prolonged the media days. So I'm very curious and very fascinated to see how this goes. What are your thoughts on the event and potential players, I guess, that you're interested in looking at?
So excited for this event as always. Last year was a blast. One of my favorite things we did over the course of the entire season. I mean, whether that is spring ball, regular season, postseason, it was truly a great start to what ended up being a great 2025. And you know what? Looking forward to the same thing in 2026. There's a lot of really great players. I'm actually writing a players to watch article for the Shrine Bowl, so please keep it locked to, league winners for that one, as I'm pointing to the logo on the top right. I think a guy that I want to start with, I wouldn't call it a layup, but this is just someone I've been very high on since getting to watch him play multiple times in person. Skylar Bell of UConn. Look, I know some people will probably immediately jump to the slot receiver assumption because of his size and everything. And honestly, that probably is going to end up being the best place for him on a consistent down-to-down basis at the NFL level. Right. This guy just wins. He gets open. He has great speed, great separation, really good contested catch player. I mean, whether he was playing Syracuse or FIU or really any type of opponent, he not only got open, but he understood how to win as a receiver. Not win with his athleticism or just win with route running. He really just has the whole package and really understands what it takes to play the position at a high level. I think this is the type of guy that is going to light up an event like this. I'll call my shot right now. When you're sitting at home looking at highlights of the Shrine Bowl, you're going to see a lot of Skylar Bell. You're going to see a lot of draft pundits kind of like, wow, look at this kid from UConn. Look at how good this rep was or that rep was. I think you're going to see a lot of that for Skylar Bell. Another guy I want to highlight at the wide receiver position is Dejon Stribling. He is very underrated. If you haven't watched the Ole Miss offense, please do. He will pop off the page. I think he's another one of those guys that is just a winner at the position. He knows how to win. He knows how to make plays. He was a big reason why Ole Miss why they succeeded so much down the stretch in that Georgia game. he's going to be very fun this week. Shifting away from the wide receiver position, guy that is underrated, coming off of a bit of a down 2025 season, Jack Andrews from Texas.
Yeah.
He was phenomenal at Cal. If you really want to see the full range of everything he can do, put on that Cal tape. One of my favorite tight ends in terms of just a pure pass catcher that I had a chance to watch. Also, he did improve his blocking this year at Texas.
Yes.
He has shown an ability to do both. He's just going to put on a show as a receiver this week and remind people that, hey, this is a guy that can really win as a move player at the position and also combines that with the effort at the position. I want to highlight one or two defensive players too, and then I'll kick it to Thomas. Travis Burke of Memphis. This is a gargantuan player. He's listed at 6'9". Yes, that is correct. Almost a 6'10" player at offensive tackle. This guy is bare hands. I mean, when he gets hands on defensive tackles or edge rushers, plays basically over for them. I really love how he attacks the run game. Some questions about the movement skills, especially as he heads to that next level. But if he doesn't have the ceiling, I think this is a guy that has the floor to just be a solid player at the NFL level. I said I was moving to defense. That's another offensive guy. Now we're going to move to defense. I just caught that. Yeah, it's 9:00. Whatever. On the defensive side of the ball, you got to see him play last night. I'm really excited to see what Wesley Bissaint in this game. His speed and instincts at the position remind me a lot of some of the better guys that we've seen in events like this, specifically last year. No, I really enjoy how Bissaint plays both the run and pass. I'm fascinated to see how he deals with some of, the all-star game situations that linebackers are put into, where it doesn't always fit the guy's strengths, but I really like seeing how they compete. Bissaint really fits that category for me, and I think he's going to have a good week. I'm just really interested to see how he deals with some of the more pass-catching running backs, some of those different types of situations where, some people may think he's not doing well, but it becomes a bit more complex than that. But I don't think he's going to end up in a lot of situations that really make it seem one way or the other. I think he's going to do a really good job competing. And then at the edge position, I am really interested to see how Anthony Lucas does, because this is a guy that really came on this year. I want to see if that carries over into drill work. I want to see if that carries over into team drills, padded team drills. I'll leave it at that.
Yes.
He's a guy that I want to see have great reps as a run defender, have great reps as a pass rusher. I think he can be really good, solid at the worst, really good at the NFL level if he, gets into the right scheme.
Yeah, I love those. I do want to give a shout out to Chris Hilton and oh my gosh, I'm gonna blank on his name. Don't tell me, Devon Marshall. Both guys who were at the Hula Bowl and got called up for the East West Shrine Bowl. Congrats to them. You mentioned Skylar Bell, Joe Fignano at quarterback, UConn. He's a guy that I'm keeping an eye on. The running back room and the linebacker rooms in this event are just amazing. I mean, I'm not gonna say them because you can look them up at the eastwestshrinebowl.com. or shrinebowl.com/roster. Great, fascinating room. I really, really do love them. I can't say enough good things about that. But you mentioned Jack Andrews, so I'm not going to go too hard on him. I'm a big fan of him as well. Bishop, and then I'll go for the offensive lineman as well. We have. Sorry. Oh my God, I'm losing. I lost track of my Brian Parker, who's going inside from Duke. I'm very interested to see how that works. Sorry, my roster screwed up all over the place. Pat Coogan, obviously you guys saw him play. He's also just a great guy. Like, his personality is infectious. He's a very hard-working guy as well. I'm very curious to see the two tackles from Memphis, Travis Burke, Chris Adams there. That'll be very fascinating. To me, Diego Pounds from Ole Miss is another guy I'm a fan of. Keegan Trost, I want to see how he performs here. Shout out Jack Stonehouse as well from Syracuse, who finds his way there. And then on the defensive side, I love the edge rushing group here too. Keyshawn James, newbie. I think he should have got more love from first team, all those voting awards. He was fantastic for New Mexico. Mason Rager for Wisconsin. He looked really good as well. And another guy who had a down year this year, who was honestly, he was in a class of his own entering this season, along with one of the Clemson edge rushers. I'm gonna blank on his name. It was either Parker or one of the others. Is Wesley Williams from Duke. He, with the emergence on the other side, Wesley kind of got overshadowed with double teams and stuff. So I'm very interested to see how his draft stock continues to grow, as he gets here in the safety position. I do want to highlight Bishop Fitzgerald from USC. He was really great. Jalen Husky, I'm very curious to see as well. And then finally, on the defensive side, I just want to talk quickly about cornerback, and that is Brent Austin. We mentioned Cal earlier. Turns out defensive backs going to the NFL. He's another guy, and he's not even the only guy who potentially, if we see another guy at the Senior Bowl, which we'll be at, and we'll talk about that one next week. And then Marcus Allen, too, quickly for North Carolina, another guy who had a down year, just on a team that had a down year. But those are all guys I'm fascinated with, and who knows, all these other guys could just impress and continue to fascinate us even more because they've added an extra day of practice. And I mean, weather permitting, it should be an exciting event. I mean, what are your thoughts quickly before we about to get on out of here?
I'm very excited. We have our plan of how we're gonna attack this event, and I'm very excited to get rolling with that. This feels like a very talented roster. This feels like a roster that, we were big fans of last year's roster, even with it being unheralded, underrated. Feels like a step up. Feels like a step up for the Shrine Bowl, which you love to see. Huge, very, very big props to them. I'm very excited to see some of the trench guys go to work. You mentioned it. Brian Parker II, one of the better offensive linemen in the country this year. Same thing goes for Travis Burke. You look at some of the other battles you could have in the trenches. George Gums Jr., one of my favorite players. I got to watch in person this year for Florida, and that's not even mentioning Tyreek Sapp. I think when we spoke about it last year, the Shrine Bowl strength really came from the skill positions. I mean, look at a LeJontay Wester, Jimmy Horn Jr., the Miami guys, some of these guys that were winning consistently. The trenches weren't really talked about as much. I think along with some of the great skill position guys that you're going to see this year, the trench play is going to be a main highlight coming out of the East-West Shrine Bowl.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's going to be fascinating. Also, want to give a shout out to Eric Rivers because I forgot that he was even going to be there. Fantastic.
There's a lot. There's a lot of really good players.
Yeah, it'll be great, and we'll have live coverage for you on Instagram, his X/Twitter, company /X/Twitter. This isn't even legit anymore. I mean, it is on Instagram, but so follow the Instagram. And we'll throw some stuff on the YouTube, the Facebook. We're going all over the place, baby. We're taking it. We're going max impressions with it. But Brandon, before we get out of here and start prepping for what's going to be a fantastic weekend, let everybody know where they can find you at on your social media.
I should probably start putting this in the description.
Yeah.
But you can find me on Twitter. I will never call it X. I don't care how much you try to pay me. I will never call it X. At BPOC24. Also on Instagram at BPOC24. On Blue Sky at Brandyn-Pokrass. And on TikTok. Had a bit of a break. Had to deal with some personal matter with Pet. That TikTok will be rolling again with Shrine Bowl coverage either during the week, post-week, whatever I decide. Also, stay tuned for some short-form college football content. Really want to dive into some of the transfer portal additions, some of my favorite players that are added. Trying to find a good day to get that rolling, but players keep committing and these classes keep changing. So I am still working to determine when that's going to start, but stay tuned for that because it's going to be great as always.
Yeah, I can't wait. Should be a fun time, and once everything gets rolling, I mean that's when we get rolling, right?
Yeah.
So until next time, It's great seeing you. This is Thomas Christopher. I'm just going to promote the Instagram. Follow us at the League Winners CF for college football, or go to the website www.leaguewinners.com.